what I'd like to do now is bring up a great friend of mine, an advisor to RAM, who is going to be talking about doing justice and how you can do that. Jeff Cucci.
Before I begin my remarks, I heard Brian this morning say that there are some here and some elsewhere who are afraid to speak out, speak up. And you are now witnessing a person who would not be caught dead on the stage or play a solo until the age of 28. I'd like to tell you first about a story for those who are afraid to speak. The man's name is Jacob Broom, and who I imitate or personate. Jacob Broom was from Delaware, and he did not miss one session of the Constitution Convention. And so little is known about this man, Jacob Broom, that in the huge picture of the Constitution Convention, he is found in the upper left-hand corner, blurred, along with one other man who is not known. Jacob Broom hardly ever spoke a word. There's almost nothing recorded by Jacob Broom. And we all know in the Constitution Convention there was constant friction over two major issues: how to represent equally larger state versus smaller state, and how to got interrupted by thought, sorry, brain cramp. The equal representation was the big issue. They had many places in which they stopped, but on July 17th, in the heat of the afternoon, where tempers were hotter inside than they were outside, there came a motion on the floor to adjourn this secret meeting within this building. And the motion was to adjourn this meeting permanently, to go back to the homes, the respective states, and discuss what would be next. Had that happened, we undoubtedly would not have the Constitution we have today. But up rose one man, Jacob Broom, the unknown, and with one small speech, in one moment of time, he changed the course of history forever, and you are enjoying that. Now, what is it you can't do? Do not look at the numbers around you. Think about the next time that you're faced with a situation to be doing something. Think, Jacob Broom, why can't I? Throughout the course of history of man, no one has ever escaped from bearing an unjust act. By infinite ways, the results can be loss of possessions, or limb, or at worst, life. Beginning with Abel, who unjustly lost his life, man has plotted through the centuries, each one giving and receiving unjust acts. Any person, when inflicted in an unjust way, always has the hope of finding one who will do justice, a biblical term. A term that means not passive. It's a verb to actually do today, tomorrow, unstopping. With that hope, one turns to the court system where justice is defined and lives. It is here that one can find salvation from injustice done, but also one may receive a greater agony from another who is bearing false witness, and that's why we're here. And the false witness is usually fueled by money or power to control, or both. The thought of bearing false witness no doubt springs to mind the Salem witch hunt. Although there were instances before that period, from February 1692 through May 1693 defines the Salem witch hunt, where 24 people lost their lives. In that, there was one man you may not be familiar with, and he is relative to why we are here today. His name is Giles Corey. He was an 80-year-old farmer from the southeast end of Salem, called Salem's Farms, when he was accused of witchcraft in September of 1692. He was the only one who did not succumb to the threats and badgering to plead guilty. Robert Califf, a contemporary critic of the Tiles, wrote, Giles Corey pleaded not guilty to his indictment, but would not put himself upon trial by the jury, they having cleared none upon trial. And knowing there would be the same witnesses against him, rather chose to undergo what death they would put him to. Corey's death was a protest against the methods of the court. Refusing to enter a plea when he came to trial in September, the judges applied an archaic form of punishment in which he was spread eagle out on the ground and a door was placed over his body, below his head. The stones were piled on the door over his chest until breathing became excruciating, painful, and very difficult. This method of execution and torture had the same end results as crucifixion, death by asphyxiation. After 2 days, Corey died without entering a plea, the only one. In our times, who will do justice? Will it be you? Slavery ended 150 years ago, but today we have slavery of women and adolescents in the sex trade, and we also have slavery in the government welfare system. Slavery still exists. From the end of slavery of the black man came the long battle to end racism, and the NAACP was born. And there was the battle of workers' rights, which bore unions, and the battle of homosexual rights, which bore the LGBT, and the battle of women's rights, which bore feminism. Within each movement, individuals rose to be leaders, champions of the cause, and making profound changes. But power and money corrupts, and the infusion of both into the lives of leaders creates an insatiable appetite to continue. To say we have won would mean two things. The money flow would cease, and the powerful leaders would have no stage in which to power from. And Jesse Jackson and Gloria Steinem would have to find a real job. To continue on and gain more power, the agenda must always be growing and expanding into unrealistic and exaggerated proportions. But to keep the money coming in, the left must ever be vigilant to find an opportunity when a man or a straight or a white person or a Christian utters a word or phrase that can be twisted into an aggressive attack against their ever-expanding agenda and then broadcasted in every media venue. And attached to the quote will be the relative words stated several times, naming that person a racist, a homophobe, a chauvinist, an Islamophobe, and on and on and on. The person is vilified and silenced. Quickly a campaign is launched and more money pours into the movement because the war is far from over. Who will do justice? Will Assistant District Attorney Mary Kellett do justice? For the last 15 years, it has been an agenda to teach and expose white privilege. Naturally, in order to change society in the shortest amount of time, this agenda has been taught to other professors and as many school teachers as can be reached. After 15 years, it is now out in the open, and it can be found coming out of the mouths of young school children. White privilege. That is hypocrisy. In reality, it is homosexual privilege. In reality, it is black privilege. Defying the Constitution, defying laws from Congress, this president has a free ride to fundamentally change America under the umbrella of black privilege. And right here we have women privilege. Assistant District Attorney Mary Kellett was found guilty by the Maine Supreme Court for violating 7 rules as she sought to win a case by any means against Mr. Phillip. Mr. Phillip. 7 bar rules. In this instant, Mary Kellett was caught, but that begs the question, how many others received the burden of injustice by the unethical practices of Mary Kellett? And it begs the question, how many else in that office that condoned it? Mary Kellett did not do justice, and she has not lost her license to practice law. personally know a man who was accused of child molestation against a child from outside the home and accused by the mother. He first found out about the charge when the police and 2 state agencies came through the door of his home. He and his wife were devastated, and their 2 children were taken from them. Guilty until proven innocent. Sound familiar? And the word spread far and wide within days. After 2 years and the loss of thousands of dollars and much, much more, he was found innocent of all charges. A lucky one. Really? Today the drums beat for social justice. Social justice will cleanse the land of all the unfairness and salvation for all of the isms. But the absolute truth is social justice is pure socialism, and there is no justice in socialism. Freedom and liberty and Americanism must die to have social justice. In the Bill of Rights, the 6th Amendment is the guarantee of rights to a fair trial. But I ask you, fair is dependent upon honesty, integrity, and for all to do justice. Where is the honesty and integrity? It's supposed to be rooted in morality. And this country's birth and laws are unequivocally rooted in the Judeo-Christian faith. John Adams said, and I close with this, "We have no government armed with power, capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion. Avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through the net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." I repeat, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. So I echo Reverend Moody. Think about it. What is missing in this nation? Morality and God. The question is, who will do justice? Thank you.